Seder. Welcome everyone. 1 second. Hold on. Okay. So today's class titled Secrets of the Seder, lesson number 1. And we're going to talk about some things about the Haggadah that many people don't understand, things about the Seder that many people may not know about. Pesach is a holiday that is probably the most Jewish celebrated holiday, but yet there's many things. There's always more to learn, and there's many things that people don't know or don't understand. You know, I say the story of the guy who's sitting on a park bench, a poor homeless guy, and he also happens to be blind. So and he also happens to be Jewish. So someone comes over to him and says, "Here, I have something for you to eat. Here's some matzah." And he hands him a matzah. And so he's saying, "What is matzah?" He says, "Who wrote this nonsense?" Okay, so anyway, so sometimes the Pesach Seder could sound a little bit like that. We feel like, who wrote this nonsense? What exactly is going on? And of course, in a certain way, it's designed that way because we want the mystery of the Seder to be there for one particular reason, and that is that we want the children to ask. Judaism is the only religion where we not only accept questions, but we encourage questions. And the very first thing that Torah tells the Jewish people when they leave Egypt is when your children are going to ask. In other words, the Torah understands that they're going to ask, they should ask, they will ask, and that is what makes the continuity of Judaism alive. That is really what makes Judaism all about, is the fact that we could communicate with our children, that we could teach our children. And sadly, many seders are made up simply of individuals who just simply want to do the rhythm. They just want to follow the book, and the kids are coming and saying, "Mommy, Daddy, what's going on? What are we doing?" And they just say, "Well, this is what we do. This is how we do it." And they say, "Okay, but why are we doing these things? Because this is just the way it is. This is the way we celebrate Passover." And that itself is a problem, because that is not what Passover is about. Passover is about celebrating it properly. Passover is about understanding what really it's about, and to listen to those questions and to hear those questions and to allow them to ask and to allow them to present that which is coming up, and then to respond in kind. And even if we don't have all the answers, you don't have to have all the answers. And that's why the Haggadah gives us some sort of classification of how to respond to how to respond to the questions that are being brought up. But at the very minimum, we have to at the very minimum we have to allow for for things to be discussed. Okay. So let us begin by going through the steps of the Seder. And what I'm going to teach you is going to be based on the Rebbe's Haggadah. What's the Rebbe's Haggadah? So many people don't know that actually, going back to the 1940s, the very first book that the Rebbe wrote was a commentary on the Haggadah. And you think, what's the Haggadah already? It's just a book with some steps of what to do. The Haggadah is one of the most complex books that are written. There are hundreds and hundreds of commentaries. It's probably underestimated. There's probably thousands of commentaries on the Haggadah. And what the Rebbe did, and again, this was the very first published book that he had. It looks like on the surface a very, very simple book, but actually, when you delve into it, you realize I don't even know if the word is brilliance, but the incredible genius of what the Rebbe was doing, and a lot of the book is just simply references and places to look. But we're going to learn some beautiful things that the Rebbe talks about. Let's leave that one aside. That the Rebbe talks about in his Haggadah. So the first thing that we begin with is the steps of the Seder and what goes on the Seder. And the truth is what the Seder is all about. Now, what you have in front of you is just simply this is just a public Haggadah which doesn't really have much information on it. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if it has the first thing that we want to talk about on there. But let's talk about what goes on the Seder plate. So there are 6 things that go on the Seder plate. The Alter Rebbe, who was the first one, who wrote actually a Haggadah in the Seder, right? So the first Haggadah was published as part of the Seder, and he published as directions of how to run a Seder. So he says like this: Yisader al Shulchana, you should place on your table Kaira, a plate, Bigimel matzahs, with 3 matzahs, Munachim zeh al zeh. 3 matzahs placed on one another. Okay, this really is not going to help you. That doesn't even have those things. Does it even have a picture of the Seder plate in here? Even that, not yet. Okay, if you're done eating and you want to clear away, just wipe away all the crumbs from the table in front of you, and then I'll give you a book to follow.
That's still a Seder plate.
Okay, so that doesn't have anything. So forget this. But when you're done eating, I just want you to wipe away any crumbs from the table, so that we could follow along in the Haggadah. Okay. All right, make sure everything's clean, no crumbs. So that has the translation. This is a Haggadah that has some of the translation of the Rebbe's Haggadah. I have the original Hebrew here, but there are some things that are translated. So if you see on the right side, on page 16, okay, this is the wording from the Seder of the Alter Rebbe, from the Haggadah of the Alter Rebbe, in instructions on how to run the Seder. So he says, they basically translated here: take 3 whole matzahs and arrange them on a tray, one on top of the other, separated by napkins. Okay, that does not say inside. It says, and then he writes that it should be a Yisrael, and on top of it a Levi, and on top of it a Kohen. And then on the right side shall be the Zeroah, which we call a shank bone. On the left side shall be a Beitzah, an egg. In the middle shall be the Maror. Under the Zeroah shall be the Chazeret, the Charosas. Then on the left side is called the Karpas. And then on the third side, on the number 6, would be what we call the Chazeret. So we're going to go through this. We're going to break this down as follows. So number 1, we begin that he says that he takes a quote from the previous Rebbe, who says like this. It says, one time my father said, Yosef Yitzchak, which is the name of the previous Rebbe, mit der Trachten b'meshach the Seder av zayin a mensch. You have to think during the Seder that you want to be a mensch. That der Eibishter helfen, and God is going to help you to be a mensch. Befrat beis psichas adalas, and especially at the time when you open the door for Eliyahu and Avi. Nit betin ken gashmius bet ruchnis. Don't ask things that are physical, ask for spiritual things. So this is the opening. And then, so he says, you shall place on the table, okay? Now, just the very fact that he's saying you shall place on the table sounds simple. Okay, you shall set up things on the table. It's not so simple. Okay, why is it not so simple? Because there's actually differences of opinion of when you're supposed to bring the Seder plate to the table. There are some who say that you're actually supposed to bring it after Kiddush, when you're actually ready to start the Seder. So he brings down from Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, that there are some that say you should bring the Seder plate, that you should have the table set, but you shall bring the Seder plate to the table after Kiddush. And so therefore he says, no, our custom is to actually bring it before. And so here we see just a very simple thing, that whatever we do by the Seder is not simple at all. And there could be many different customs, and sometimes you may see different customs of things that are done. But he says, according to our custom, that you shall actually have the kaira prepared as soon as you come home. One of the reasons that they say to do it before Kiddush is because you want to do Kiddush right away when you get home in order to get into the Seder. So they say it's worth it to get the Seder going, even if the kaira, even if the table's not fully ready. But we say no, you should have the Seder plate ready to go as well. And also when you learn in the Code of Jewish Law, where it talks about aspects of the Seder, so it talks about bringing a table. When you look in the Talmud, for example, it says you shall bring the table or remove the table. We don't remove a table, and so we have to understand that the Talmud is talking about a time when the tradition then was everyone had their own personal table. In many cases, they were even sitting on the floor, and leaning meant actually they had pillows, and that was a royal way. Today we sit on chairs when we have the Seder, but that wasn't always. So when we do leaning, we sort of lean to the left. Now they say Chabad never gets involved in politics, but when it comes Pesach, we lean to the left. Anyway, so what do? We lean a little bit to the left, and that's significant. That's sufficient for leaning by the Seder. But the truth is, when the Talmud talks about leaning, they would actually sit on the floor. They would have pillows and blankets, and they would literally lean back. And they even have maybe some couches on the floor or some pillows to sit on, and they each would have their own little table that they would sit next to.
So it wasn't one big table where people sat around. People had individual tables.
Back in the day, correct.
Yeah. So like the Greek symposium.
Correct. Like the images you see today. I don't want to talk about the Last Supper. Some say that famous image was by the Pesach Seder. Yeah, they definitely did not sit like that on one long table. That was not. They probably sat around, but each one sitting on the floor and each one sitting in their place. There's other artists who depicted it more accurately. And so therefore, when we talk about setting up the Seder plate, what they actually did, they would sit down, they would make Kiddush, and they want to be served, so they feel like kings on the night of Pesach, and then someone would come and bring them their Seder plate. So when we see that there's certain things of how we do tradition, we have to know that things actually evolved over time and how these traditions were done. We do have to remember what is the core mitzvahs of the night, but many things are customs and the way they play out. And so therefore, when you have here that that it says you shall set up your Seder plate. It sounds like a sort of how do you say? I don't know, a basic or elementary thing. Set up your Seder plate. No, even that, just that very fact, is already controversial when it comes to Pesach.
So now when we talk about leaning, it's a little bit uncomfortable because you're actually sitting at a table in chairs.
Right.
Whereas back in the
So
day,
right. So
they were actually sitting on the floor and they could actually.
right. So our leaning or the floor or like pillows and blankets, whatever, whatever they had a cushioned seat, but wasn't an uncomfortable sitting on the floor. It was a comfortable sitting on the floor. So now,
I can share something really interesting. Like, because I'm single, I was able to go to each year I go to the house for Passover. Exactly what you're saying. Like one year I went to a house and the plate is already set up for you. You go in and sit down.
right.
I went to another house. Go in. There was an empty table, and there was a second table. The second table was eating matzah only, nothing else. The empty table was at the Passover table, and we built everything.
You can sit here.
We built everything from scratch. I'll just describe this.
Right.
We built it from scratch.
You can sit here if you want.
So there's like you said, there's a lot of different men on the.
You want something to eat? Okay, so let's continue on. So now let's talk about the things that were actually set up on the table. So it's interesting that by the Chabad Rebbe's that they had a custom that when it says that you shall make a Seder plate, right? So a Seder plate. So there's different ways to do it. So some people have like an actual built plate where they stick in the matzahs. So but the Chabad custom is that they had a silver like tray that would go on the bottom, and that was considered the plate, the Seder plate. That was actual kaira. Things would go on top of it. That, in other words, that it should be formed as if we have a very royal plate, which they made. They wanted that to be of silver, and then it should be like everything is like naturally placed on top of a plate, not like a shelf, which some people have today as a shelf. And he goes on. He tells a story that there was some of the things that they had. He says that they had a Kiddush cup from the Alter Rebbe. By the way, some of these things today you can actually see in the library in New York. They had a Kiddush cup from the Alter Rebbe, which actually had some drops of wine that he used, and they would always place it on the table to be able to use it. Generally, says that there was not a lot of like gold and silver. It wasn't something that they used much. But when it came Pesach, they wanted to always make sure that there was a silver plate. He says someone once gave the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, once gave him what they had then was these tobacco smelling things. They're like these little cases, little silver cases, and you would put in tobacco and snuff it, right? They snuff tobacco. And so he gave him one of these, and it was made out of silver. And he said, I'm not going to really use it, but he took off like the back piece of it. It's like this flip, so he took off like the opening thing, and he used that as a mirror for his tefillin. Anyway, but the point is that on the table you wanted to have something that was silver, something that was nice to make it as an important night. I pointed out before that I have some books, but I did not want them to be used while the chametz is being eaten. So whenever you're done, we could do one. Okay, so now we said that you should have 3 matzahs. Sounds simple. Everyone says 3 matzahs. Do you know that that's not simple? Do you know that there are different opinions as to how many matzahs you should actually have? There's the famous opinion of the Vilna Gaon, the great Gaon of Vilna, who says that you should actually have two matzahs. Two? Yeah. Why? So why do we have three matzahs? So soon I'll get to like some of the deeper meanings, but just simply, why do we have three matzahs? Well, you have
to break the middle matzah.
Exactly.
You have to have at least three to have a middle.
Exactly. So you want to make hamotzi on two whole matzahs, because just like every Shabbos, you have to have lechem mishneh, you have to have two breads. So you have to have two breads, but we're going to break the middle matzah. So if you're breaking the middle matzah, then you're not going to have two whole ones. So we want to have two whole ones. Then how we use them out later on in the Seder, the top two we use for the actual mitzvah matzvah, and the second one we do for the korech, which is the sandwich. The Vilna Gaon says that no, that actually the mitzvah is that one of the two breads that we have should be broken, because it's called lachem oni, poor bread. Now we obviously don't follow that opinion, neither do 90% of Jewish people today, but there is small percentage who are, diehard Vilna Gaon fans, and they do follow that. There are some that do follow that opinion. But again, where we see nothing on Pesach is simple. So he brings down a number of three matzahs. He bring down about the three matzahs. No, he doesn't translate everything that I want here. So the three matzahs, he says, there were people of Kiron, a city called Kiron. They asked Rav Shri Gaon. Rav Shri Gaon was one of the Gaons who came in the period after the Talmud, and he said, they asked him, why do we take three matzahs exactly on Pesach Seder? And he said that there's a hint in the Torah to it. What's the hint in the Torah? So when Avram was visited by the three guests, remember? He was visited by the angels. And he told Sarah, you should go make 3 loaves of bread. Okay? And she went to make the 3 loaves of bread, and the Talmud learns out that night was Pesach. And so what he was actually telling her was to make matzah, and he told her to make 3, so we see that the Torah is hinting to us the idea of 3. Some say that it's to remember the 3 forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And as we see over here, that it also is the 3, as mentioned before, that is the Kohen, the Levi, and Yisrael. Now, when you put it in, so we start from the bottom, Yisrael, the bottom, your name is Yisrael, right? The bottom, Yisrael, and then Levi, and then Kohen. Yud, Lamed, Kaf, Yelech, which means to go. If you do it the other way, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, that spells, the first letter of those words spell the letter Keli, which means that Keli means a vessel. So this one I think he actually translates here, so we can look at this one inside. Why did Kabbalah teach the eyes must be placed on top of the matzahs? According to Kabbalah, spiritual illumination reaches this world, intense lights being channeled down into vessels which help to restrain the light so that they will not be overwhelming for the creations. In our case, the matzahs allude to the vessels, and the various items allude to the lights. The items are therefore placed upon the matzahs, alluding to the notion of the lights being channeled down into the vessels. You can also understand why concave matzahs are preferred. In other words, so therefore some people look specifically for matzahs that are sort of, most matzah has sort of like a bend inside. At least shmura matzahs, not talking about machine matzahs, shmura matzahs, they have like this sort of like bend in the bottom, because they, in the oven, they like pop up. Some people try to get matzahs that are a little bit more, almost like a vessel holding something. Okay. So now, what are the things that go on top? So we have on the right side, we have a bone, which we call the zroa. And on the left side, we have the egg. So why do we have these two things? So he says because you have to have two cooked items on Pesach. Why do you have to have two cooked items on Pesach? Because by the Seder, there's a mitzvah to have two different dishes. One is called the Chagiga, and one is called the Pesach. So we all know we bring the korban Pesach, we bring the Pesach offering, and you eat it by the Seder. But the truth is that to remember the Pesach offering, that's actually eaten what we call the Afikoman. The Afikoman, why do we eat the Afikoman? So there should be a game that kids could search for the Afikoman. There's more to it. The really the most simple basic reason that we eat the Afikoman, why does it go all the way at the end of the Seder, at the end of the meal? Because it represents the korban Pesach. We're eating an extra piece of matzah to remember the Pesach offering, which had to be eaten. Lamb had to be eaten at the end of the meal when you're already full. Now imagine. I mean, I personally I don't like lamb. I actually had some lamb this Shabbos. I don't like it. Some people love lamb, but imagine having to eat that while you're full. It's probably not the easiest thing to eat the Pesach offering, which is why it's designed to eat it in a way where you eat it with a big group.
Well, the Afikoman, well, that's a Greek word. Why is a Greek word used for Afikoman? Epikomen.
Epikomen is a Greek word?
Yeah, Epikomen means after eating.
Okay,
But that's it. Epikomen.
Okay, interesting.
Greek.
Interesting. I didn't know
Oh,
that.
you didn't know that's Greek?
No.
Okay.
We read it as afikuman, which means take out, which is actually Aramaic, take out bread,
Oh.
take out food.
I thought it was Greek. Epikomen.
It could be. It could be. I'm not.
I didn't
No,
realize that, but it
A lot of-
makes sense.
but- and-
Like Homeric or-
Yeah, and it could be. It could be also that.
I thought it was
That
means
the
after
Greek
eating,
the
Epikomen.
the Greek could have possibly gotten it from the Aramaic,
Okay. Yeah.
right? So, but that's I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that. I did not know. So, but you also have to have a second dish, and that is the chagiga. What's the chagiga? It was a mitzvah that for the 3 pilgrimage festivals, which you went up every single year, the 3 pilgrimage festivals, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, you would have to bring a korban, you bring an offering with you. And that was called the chagiga. What does chagiga mean? It comes from the word chag, right? Celebration, a holiday. That it was a mitzvah to eat meat on the holiday. I know some people or whatever, but it's a mitzvah to eat meat on the holiday. And so you would bring an offering called the chagiga. A small part of it would be offered in the Beis HaMikdash, and the rest would be eaten as your meal, as your holiday meal. And so that's what we would call today the Shulchan Aruch, which is the meal of Pesach would be the chagiga, and that's why we have a second dish. Now we today have an egg, and we'll soon talk about why. But the truth is, from a simple halachic standpoint, you can use any cooked dish. It could be a piece of chicken, it could be a piece of fish, and that's just to remember the mitzvah to the chagiga. But we take a hard-boiled egg, which I'll get to in a second. Why? But that's why we eat the hard-boiled egg when? In the beginning of the meal. Some people dip it in salt water, but it's eaten at the beginning of the meal. If you want a Haggadah, I would just ask you to clean up any remnants of comments there, just to wipe it down, to throw out the plate or whatever. So why do we eat an egg? So he says, an egg, a beitza in Aramaic is be'ah. Be'ah comes from the Aramaic word ba'a. Ba'a means he wanted. Ba'a rachamana lemifrak yasana bidara memrama. that Hashem wanted to or tried to redeem us with an outstretched hand. So the word be'ah is ba'a, which means God wanted to. Some people say this is the more common reason that's brought is because it's an egg is something that's served to mourners, a round egg which represents the circle of life, and because it's to remember an offering from the Holy Temple, which we don't have today, so the egg is also mourning for the Holy Temple. So whenever we do something, a celebration, it also comes together with mourning the temple that was there. And for example, even a wedding, right? When it comes to a wedding, we break a glass. It's such a joyous occasion, we break the glass. Over here also, the joyous celebration, the Passover Seder, but at the same time, remember, we're not doing it 100% the way it should be done. We're still missing some key elements, and so that's why we take the egg there. The problem is the problem with that, which is the most common version, is that we know that actually, even in the time of the temple, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, they would actually have a Seder plate as well. So now comes the question: did they have these things on the Seder plate in the time of the temple? Right, they had a Seder. Seder goes back all the way to the day of when they left Egypt. They had a Seder. So how did they have their Seder plate there? And it seems pretty clear that then they had a Seder plate, which possibly that they had on one side, they didn't have a bone, but they actually had a piece of the Korban Pesach on there, right? And so you would have to say that they had something else there. It was probably not their whole meal because they didn't put a whole big chunk of meat or whatever they ate. So maybe they just had something else there as like a reminder for what we're doing tonight, and then I guess, and then perhaps over the years, that it sort of morphed into the custom of using an egg. But it's an interesting question. Now, as far as the bone goes, we take a chicken neck, and some people actually a shank bone. One thing that you do not want to use is to use a bone of a lamb. And a lot of people do that, use lamb of meat. That's to remember the Korban Pesach. But actually, it's a very big problem. Because what you're doing is you're basically putting on your Seder plate, you're saying, here is our Korban Pesach, but it's not the Korban Pesach. It's simply to remember the Korban Pesach. So that's why in Chabad it's become the custom is to use a chicken neck, which number one, it's not going to be eaten, probably won't be eaten anyway, so you're not wasting it. And number two, it's specifically from a chicken and not from an animal which would resemble the Korban Pesach. So now, then we have, under it goes the maror. So there's a Kabbalah question over here, which is, you see the way the Seder plate is set up. So you have right, left, middle. Okay? That is, in Kabbalah, that represents the Sfirot, right? You have Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes. Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, right? Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and then Malchus is the Matzah. So we have Chesed, Gevura. What's Chesed? Chesed is kindness. Gevura means stringent, severity. So shouldn't the maror be associated with Gevura to go on the left side? Why do we put it in the middle on the bottom? Right? Doesn't the maror represent Gevura? Strength, toughness. So shouldn't that should really go on the left side? Not in the bottom. What does the middle represent? Tiferes. Tiferes means comes from the word is associated with Rahmanis, which is mercy. It's really mercy, right?
Like more chesed.
Well, chesed is kindness. That's the right side. Mercy is a balance. It's a balance between kindness and severity, right? Because mercy means I'm having mercy on those that need it. Kindness means unconditional kindness. Gevura means the strength, but unconditional strength. Tiferes means a balance. That mercy means to those that need it. But seemingly, the Mara should be associated with Gevura. So the Rebbe explains that no, that actually the Mara represents that we're asking God for mercy. In other words, when you're crying the tears of the Mara, that invokes God's mercy. So it actually is associated more with mercy than with Gevura. Then we have the Charosas, which goes on the right side. Okay. So the Charosas is to remember the tit. Okay, it says paste of ground, apples, nuts, pears, wine added later. So why do we have the Charosas? So the Charosas is to remember it's supposed to look like bricks, not more like mortar, right? Not the actual bricks, the right.
Between the bricks.
Now some people put inside of it something that is sharp, that to remember the sharpness that they had to go through. So why do we take the apples, the pears? Where does that come from? So it's brought down in the Gaonim that you should use fruit that Jewish people are compared to. So we find Jewish people compared to different things. For example, apple. Jewish people are compared to the apple. Some people say it's the source of Jewish people being compared to dates, figs. So that's where some of these things come from.
Where are the Jewish people compared to an apple?
We talked about this on Tu B'Shvat. I forget the exact verse, but it's brought down apple. I think in Yeshaya, I forget the exact verse offhand. Now, another verse here. So it says the Torah uses a verse: "V'chareishes even, v'chareishes eitz." The Torah talks about them working in Egypt. It says charoshes, that they will work with stones, and eitz means wood. So if you take those two words, even and eitz, even. Aleph, Bet, Nun stands for apple, Barin, Nissen. Apple is an apple.
In Yiddish.
In Yiddish. Barin is a pear. And what's Nissen? Nissen is nuts. They take the word eitz, which means wood. Also in Yiddish is Ingebar and Cimarron, which is ginger and cinnamon. Now the Chabad custom is not to use cinnamon because it's we try to keep away from anything that could be questionable as far as chametz goes. It's not chametz cinnamon, but anyway. Okay, then you have karpas. So what does the word karpas mean? What is karpas? So what's karpas? What kind of word is karpas?
And most people use parsley or lettuce.
Parsley or lettuce. But that's not what the word karpas means.
But that's also it's also not Hebrew. It's Greek or something, or Aramaic. I don't know.
So karpas is also made up of a few words, which is samach perech. Samach is 60. Perech means hard work. So Samach Perech means 600, referring to this, the 60 referring to 600,000 Jews who Perech, they did hard work. Because what do we do with the karpas? And we're dipping it in the salt waters to remember the tears from all the hard work that they did. So that's the word karpas. Now there may be other references to the meaning of karpas. This is the one that's brought here. Our particular custom in Chabad is to use an onion or a potato, but there are other kinds. Basically, you can use any vegetable. But it should be a vegetable that you make a hadama on. Okay. Then you have the charoses. Then you have the chazeres, which goes under the what do you call under the mar. Okay. Let's continue on a little bit. So if you want, okay, what are the steps of the Seder? If I'm just going to ask you to throw out that plate if you want a Haggadah, and then I'll give you one. Okay, so let's go through what are the actual steps of the Seder. And then we'll break this down. Let's see, what page did I just give you there?
19.
19, okay. Kadesh or Chatz? Karpas Yachatz. Okay, so let's do the first one. Kadesh or Chatz? When we Kiddush, then we wash our hands. Okay? This is a very strange teaching, and brings us down over here as well. According to Kabbalah, the Arizal, the first two steps are joined in Hebrew with the letter Vav. Urchatz means and we wash. Should say Kadesh Rachatz. Right? You know Hebrew, right? Urchatz means and we wash. None of the other ones have that Vav. Like it's like and we go. So he brings on a Kabbalistic explanation, some confusing since Kabbalah also teaches the spiritual forces which Kadesh and Urchatz manifest are oppositely charged. So the Rebbe goes on and gives a number of explanations of where this term Urchatz comes from. He said that it could be when you know during the year, like let's say any regular Shabbos, halachically you're allowed to wash your hands and then go make Kiddush. As long as you make sure that your hands didn't touch anything else, you could go and make Hamotzi right away.
Even though you make Kiddush in between?
Yes. And halachically, you're allowed to do that. You could wash your hands, make Kiddush, and then make Hamotzi. Just make sure your hands didn't touch anything else. But we're saying perhaps we're saying that on Pesach you cannot do that. You have to make sure to go Kaddish and then wash your hands afterwards. So that's a suggestion.
Why is it you do not say a blessing the first time you wash your hands?
Because you're not washing for bread.
So you can say only, so the blessing was on Titus rebellion.
Yeah, because the mitzvah, what you're saying in bracha, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu, that he has commanded us, that mitzvah is only when you're eating bread.
Only when you're eating bread.
Now
so you
are
have a snack.
We are washing it. Well, the reason we're washing is, again, from a simple halachic perspective. The reason that we're washing our hands now is because we're going to take a vegetable and dip it into water. And when a vegetable is dipped into water, it becomes susceptible to impurity. And so therefore we have to wash our hands to keep away from that impurity. Right? You understand what I'm saying? So, but there's not a mitzvah. You can't say Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvotav. There's no mitzvah.
Okay.
Right, okay.
So if you're just gonna wash your hands and maybe just have a snack or something,
Yeah.
like some candy or whatever, you wouldn't say the blessing.
You won't have to wash your hands at all. Even with the vegetables, it's something that we do on Pesach, but it doesn't seem like something that we would do regularly either.
Also, unless you're going, you wouldn't say ordinarily if you just in the morning, get up in the morning and wash your hands.
Yeah. Well, that's getting up. Well, that's a separate thing. Washing your hands in the morning. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Kaddish, but before we get to the other things, I'm actually going to skip a little. So let's go to 20. I don't think we have to go through the steps. I think most of you here know in general what the steps are. But here are a few things. The Likutei Tamim and Hagim. Okay? So, Kiddush. How is tonight's Kiddush different than the festival of Kiddush throughout the year? See page 20? Likutei Tamim and Hagim says, because in addition to being Kiddush, sanctifying the festival day, is also one of the 4 cups of wine, which our sages enacted that every person should drink on this night. Okay? Therefore, there's going to be a few things that make Kiddush different on the night of Pesach than the rest of the year. Number 1, during the year, there's an option to make Kiddush over bread. Tonight, we must make Kiddush over wine. Okay? So there is a concept, if someone doesn't have wine or can't drink wine or whatever, you say Kiddush, Savrim Ranan, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, hamotzi lachem min haaretz. On Shabbos, you're allowed to do that. As a matter of fact, it's in the Seder. If you see in the Seder, it says 2 brachas, Hagafen and Hamotzi. On the night of Passover, you can't, because Kiddush is one of the 4 cups of wine, which is a mitzvah to eat the 4 cups of wine. Number 2, during the year, somebody else may make Kiddush on your behalf. Tonight, every person must drink the cup of wine himself. Okay, so that would be another difference with the Kiddush. Normally, now it doesn't mean that everyone necessarily has to say the Kiddush, but but everyone has to drink the Kiddush. So everyone has to have their own cup of Kiddush and drink that cup of Kiddush on the night of Pesach. Number 3.
You can just say Amen and drink.
Right.
Okay. Without saying the Kiddush.
Right. It's preferable to say your own Kiddush. Tonight, a person should push himself to drink the 4 cups, even if it causes him severe discomfort, and even if he cannot afford the wine.
Now you said it's preferable for everyone to say the Kiddush. So actually, on Pesach, with the Seder, everybody could say the Kiddush in unison together. Is that what you're implying?
Yes, some people do that. Some people do that.
So if there's a whole group of people, everybody could say.
If they all know the Kiddush, then they can do it. Or each one can make their own Kiddush on their own.
Okay.
But the point is that everyone has to drink a full cup of wine.
Everybody, okay.
That's whether or not they're saying the entire Kiddush or not, each one has to drink their cup of wine. That's what's important.
Okay.
So, like for example, if I was doing it with my family, I would make Kiddush. My wife and children would hear the Kiddush, and then they'll drink their cup. They'll say Amen and then drink their cup. Also, a woman can't make Shechianu if they made a Shechianu when lighting the Shabbos candles. Then tonight, a person should push himself to drink the 4 cups, even if it causes him severe discomfort. D, during the year, we are permitted to bring in the festival, our Shabbos, early and make Kiddush while it's still light, but tonight we may only make Kiddush after nightfall. This is a huge issue especially for Chabad public Seders. And that is, and a lot of people don't understand this, but normally we can make Kiddush when, even before it gets dark, like especially in summertime, we have here like holy hour, happy hour. Sometimes in summertime, we make Kiddush, it's still light outside, and you're allowed to do that. And Pesach you're not allowed to, and it's always problematic because the clock always changes before Pesach. And for example, here, now some places up north it may not be such a problem, but up here, nightfall isn't till about 8:30, about 8:20, 8:30, depending on what year Pesach is, between 8:20 and 8:30. Okay, that means that we cannot make Kiddush until 8:30.
That's be night, okay. Sunset, after sunset.
Yeah, and so with public seders, we have this issue, and there's always different ways of how to approach it, and depending on how late it is, there may be, there may be some serious repercussions in how to go about the seder. I mean, if you live someplace where it's not getting dark until 10 o'clock at night, which could be in some places, then you have a real problem.
Well, how about the second night of Pesach? It's already Pesach in the second, you're having a Seder, the second Seder.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It still has to be after night, even the second
Even
night.
the second night has to be
Yes,
after.
yes.
Because it's
Because
Pesach already.
it's a separate day, and that day starts by night.
Okay.
So the Kiddush cannot start. So there's different things that we do to play with it a little bit, to play with the time.
Well, how about the Shechayanu? Here it shows Shechayanu. Do you say that on the second night?
Yeah, well, yeah, we always make Shechiah on the second
Even
night.
if it's the second night?
Always, every Yantif.
Okay.
There's the same thing Shavuos and the same thing Sukkot, and
Oh, you think, okay.
yeah, because the second night is out of question. In other words, is this the right one or is that the right one? So if you're doing it out of question, then we have to assume that the second night may be the main night,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Because there was a second night.
Even
because of the uncertainty.
even though
Because of the
today
uncertainty.
we follow a standard calendar, but still we're following that tradition, which is that the second night is assuming that the second, because in Israel they don't have a second night, right?
Yeah.
When we're doing the second night, the assumption is that may be the main night,
Oh, okay.
right?
So we treat it as if it
Correct.
could be
Correct.
the first night. And so everything, okay.
And so therefore, so this is a very important one that it has to be done before nightfall. I know that there are, some people may be watching this video and may say, well, we're doing a Seder at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock. The mitzvah to drink the 4 cups of wine and to eat the matzah, the mitzvah has to be done after nightfall. And if you're having a Seder earlier, you should try and drink 4 cups of wine after nightfall and say something, at least something in between. At very minimum, you must eat at least an ounce of matzah after nightfall. So if you did your entire Seder at 5 o'clock, you had a beautiful club Seder, they got together 5 o'clock and they finished it by 7 o'clock, it's still light outside. They say, we did Passover. No, if you didn't eat matzah after nightfall, you did not do Passover, period. You may come home with a stomachache and say that I ate all the stuff, but it doesn't matter. You did not fulfill any obligation associated with Pesach if you ate matzah and drank 4 cups of wine before nightfall, period. There's no other way around it. You did a very nice tradition. You did a very nice gesture. You felt good about yourself, but you did not fulfill the mitzvah of Pesach. And that's why by our public Seder, we sort of move things around a little bit and we sort of do some things, like part of the meal we'll serve earlier in order that by the time it comes to Kiddush, it's already by nightfall. So we sort of, we play around with the time a little bit. But yes, the Kiddush has to be done after nightfall, which is no other holiday has this problem. Actually, Shavuos does, but I'm not going to go there. Okay, then the fifth issue is tonight we try to drink the whole cup of wine, or at least the majority of it, right? So normally when you make Kiddush, you take a little sip and that's sufficient. Tonight you have to drink a cup of wine. That doesn't mean you have to drink a full cup of wine, but at least the majority of the wine. Which would be a kazayas, which is roughly about, revius, which is roughly about 2.5 ounces of wine per cup. at a minimum. I would say try to do at least closer to 3 ounces if possible. But that should be your minimum go-to, about 2.5 to 3 ounces of wine. It's not that much. I mean, wine, well, you can't drink wine, drink grape juice. But, but that's what it is. Okay, so this is another question. So this is another thing where we see Kiddush, the night of Pesach is already different than everything else. Then, what is the idea of the 4 cups? So first of all, the 4 cups of wine is a mitzvah. It's a rabbinical mitzvah. Okay, which is why I say if someone can't do everything in Pesach, the first thing you should do is eat matzah, because that is a biblical mitzvah. But this is a rabbinical mitzvah, and it's the same mitzvah as lighting Shabbat candles. Is the same mitzvah as drinking 4 cups of wine. And women are obligated with this mitzvah as well. Now, in halacha, timely mitzvahs, women are not obligated to do if it's a time-bound mitzvah. But over here, they are. Why? Because they were also part of the miracle. And when you're part of the miracle, you're also obligated to do that mitzvah. Similar to Purim, for example, women are obligated to hear the Megillah because they were part of the miracle. And it's called Megillas Esther, after a woman. And Hanukkah, women are, because also they were part of. So even though generally we say you're not obligated in timely mitzvahs, but if it's a mitzvah that is associated specifically somehow to women being involved in the miracle that took place, then they are obligated as well. Now, you could ask a question, why, if it's a mitzvah, why do we make a bracha? Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shtiyat arba kosot. It's a mitzvah, right? It's when it's not just a kiddush, so there's a number of reasons here. He actually brings down one of the reasons here, because the mitzvah is performed in 4 separate parts with interruptions in between. Because we're not actually eating it right away. So you see where it says here, because we're not actually drinking 4 cups of wine. We're not just drinking 4 cups. But there's going to be interruptions, we're going to be talking, we're going to be eating, we're going to be discussing, we're going to be doing all kinds of things in between. So therefore we don't make a bracha on it because you're not able to do the full mitzvah in that sense. Now, what's the idea of the 4 cups? So there's a number of things associated with 4 cups. Number 1, there are 4 expressions of redemption. There are 4 expressions of redemption that the Torah tells us. So the 4 cups are connected to the 4 expressions of redemption. Another one is for the 4 decrees that Pharaoh made. That they can't have bricks, that they have to kill the children, etc. And there are a number of other reasons as well. Okay.
Now when you talk about 4 cups of wine, you don't have to drink a whole cup before it's refilled, right?
Right, yeah, correct. You don't have to.
So as long as you drink the minimum amount, the cup just has to be refilled to its maximum level.
Yeah.
A normal max.
Right.
Whatever that is.
So let's go to 36. Page 36. This is washing our hands. Why do we wash our hands at this point? Talmud says, because the law requires us to do so before eating food dipped in liquid. This is in order not to impart liquid with ritual impurity from the hands, for ritual impurity is transmitted more easily to a wet substance. Why do we not make a bracha? This is what you asked. Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. In the case of halachic doubt, we do not make a blessing for fear that we would be uttering God's name in vain. In this instance, there is a view that washing hands before touching dipped foods was a mitzvah only practiced in temple times, but not something that we do today. Why do we dip something? What is that a concept? Chok Yaakov says, because it's part of a Seder designed to arouse interest in the children. We want to do something different, because normally what do? Normally we wash our hands. We make a al natilas yadayim when we go and eat bread. We want the children to ask. Why do we want the children to ask? Because it's a mitzvah for the children to ask. When they ask the questions, the manashtana. That is the highlight of the Seder, is the manashtana. If you want to know what is the highlight of the Seder, that's the manashtana. Okay, I'm just going to do one more thing, and then next week I would go through a little bit more of the actual crux of the Haggadah itself, like the things that we do in the Haggadah. But let's just take a look at Yachatz, breaking the matzah, which is the next step that we do. We break the matzah. Classic questions. Why do we break the matzah now and leave broken piece in the Seder plate? Because we are required to recite Haggadah in the presence of matzah, which is suitable to fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah on this night, and this must be a broken piece specifically. The law implicit in this verse, you shall eat it with matzos, bread of oni, which our sages expound what does mean. Oni, a bread upon which we recite onim, many things, and scripturally the word oni is written ani, which means poor man. So most people translate that it shall be poor bread. How do you translate the poor bread? What's the word that they use? That it's a lechem oni, which means poor bread. But it says actually there's another meaning to oni. Oni means onim, which means we answer, right? Ona means we answer. That we're answering means we're answering many words with it. In other words, this is a bread that we talk over. So we have to have a bread that represents two things. Number one, poor man's bread. And number two, a discussed bread, a talked about bread. So the way that we do that is we break the matzah. It should be on the Seder plate. It should be in front of us as we're going to say the Haggadah. We're going to say many words. We're going to say the Haggadah with this bread in front of us. And also it represents poor, because we're taking the poor bread and we're leaving it there. And so this is what people make a mistake sometime. When I ask you, why are we breaking the matzah? 90% of people would answer, why? Because we need the afikoman. And actually the answer is the opposite. It's because we need the broken piece that's not the afikoman to sit on the Seder plate. Now, what do we have to do with the afikoman? So, the afikoman is now saying that we're going to put that away for later. Now, why do we take the bigger piece? So let's take a look here, because he actually translates this as well. Why is all these? Most of these things are brought down from the Rebbe's Haggadah, because the afikoman is considered to be a very important mitzvah, since it takes place of the Paschal lamb, which is roasted in a matter of importance. So therefore, we want the bigger one to represent the afikoman, the bigger piece, because that represents the Karban Pesach, which was obviously a central part of the Seder. Now, it's our custom to break it into 5 pieces. We break the afikoman into 5 pieces. Look at the time and hagim. Breaking the afikoman in the middle matzah is, according to Kabbalah, symbolic of sweetening the divine attribute of Gevurah. The middle matzah represents severity, a trait characterized by our patriarch Yitzchak. If you remember, we said that the 3 matzahs is Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So the middle one represents Yitzchak. Note that Yachatz and Yitzchak share the same letters, whereas the afikoman represents kindness, afikuman, mean bringing out the food. You wanted to know about the word afikuman, suggestive of charity and kindness. So creating afikoman, kindness, in the middle matzah, severity, suggests a softening of the severity into kindness. And since according to Kabbalah, there are 5 forces of severity, we break the afikoman into 5 pieces to ensure that each harsh force is sweetened. Why do we put it aside? So most people say, why are we hiding the afikoman? So kids will go and look for it. No, actually, the reason we had the afikomen is because we don't want to eat it in the meal. We want to make sure that we know that it's saved. So if you lose where it is, if you forget where you put it, then you miss the whole point. Because the whole point is that you should eat it to remember the Korban Pesach. So don't lose the afikomen. Okay, there's a lot more to talk about. We're just getting started, barely even scratching the surface with the Haggadah, but this is a good start. Next week we'll talk about a little bit more of the actual liturgy of the Haggadah itself. Thanks for those joining. How do I end this?
Thank you very much.